Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. We're doing Loki, episode 5, The Journey into Mystery. I don't actually know if that's the name of the episode, but we're going with it.
It's it's a nice nod to the original appearance of Loki and everything like that in the Marvel comics, apparently. So
yes, it is. Well, a bunch of stuff
what an
happens.
episode. Yep. And what an episode.
So classic Loki. Well, basically, I'm skipping all the camera work stuff.
Yeah.
I don't really know what that means. I'm it is very effective, and I'm not dismissing it because, as I said, right. I feel like every one of these episodes has kind of started off disorienting you, and they decided this time to just actually physically make you feel disoriented instead of story-wise. So
yeah,
I feel like they stuck to their guns on that, and it was good. But wanted to just jump into the meat of things, which is Loki getting up, and basically classic Loki right away is like, this is the Void, that's Eliath, we gotta go. He's gonna kill us.
Deep cuts, a lot of information, a lot of deep Marvel information right away. Eliath, can't wait to get into that, but yeah, so fast.
And then I think
confirmed to be alligator Loki, by the way. Remember how last episode
we were kept saying crocodile? Yeah. I got a couple of things wrong. I don't remember. Yep. Oh yeah, I got wrong that Ravonna Renslayer made any kind of face when Mobius was pruned. She definitely did.
And yes, she did. She did a turn away kind of thing.
Yes,
yeah, sure.
And it is definitely an alligator, not a crocodile. I genuinely, even though we did make the distinction on air, I definitely still thought it was a crocodile. I thought it was the more narrow snout, even though on the episode we definitely said it's the one with the the more set. But anyway, the point is, yes, it's alligator Loki. I'm an idiot, and I definitely missed when Renslayer makes a face. She definitely did.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm gonna kind of try and pack all the Sylvie Renslayer stuff all together because I know it cuts back and forth between stuff. But basically, after we see the introduction of the Void, we see Sylvie and Renslayer, and it's basically right after we left them with her being like, "Give me all the answers," and Renslayer saying she's just as in the dark as Sylvie is.
Yeah,
who knows if that's true?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I don't trust a thing she's saying at this point.
Yeah, this is kind of, I don't know that I like this episode as much as everyone else, but I think it's because of what I've built up in my head of I can't really trust anything anyone says because they just seem to pull the rug from out under you every time. So I'm just I guess I'll just wait till the end. But and I was also wrong. They definitely are doing a second season of this. I didn't think that was confirmed, but that has also been confirmed. So I guess, they can just keep pulling the rug from out under us until there's a final season. But anyway, she confirms what we already knew, which is Loki's not dead yet. And that basically she'll help Sylvie, not because she cares about Loki or Sylvie, but because they both want the same thing, which is to find the person who created the TVA.
Yes.
So that's all good information to know. Whether or not it's true, I don't know, but there we are.
Yeah.
And I guess the wording she used was she wants to know who lied to her. So it is in terms of this thing that she committed her life to, I do think she feels betrayed. I do believe that. I don't know if she's as in the dark as she says, but I think she still feels betrayed, and that is motivating her.
Yeah, and you're referencing Renslayer at this point.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. There's definitely, she's got her own agenda for sure, but I can't trust anything she's saying at this point. And you're right. It makes me kind of disappointed to think that at all times.
Yeah, I'm just I don't know, because the next bit of information she gives, I'm like, I hope this is true, but it's coming from me, so maybe it's not. Basically, she says the Void is where they place anything it's at the end of time, and nothing comes back from it, which is important because at first I was like, oh, then why would she care that Mobius got pruned if she knows this? But she knows that no one comes back from it, so Mobius is as good as dead to her if she does that, even if she knows she's not actually killing Mobius. But yeah, she basically talks about how you can't know for sure that you're going to get rid of everything from a timeline, so they just transfer it instead of trying to delete it.
It was something about the principles of the laws of matter or something like that. You can't destroy matter, you can only transfer it. So that's what they have to do. And what you have is a Sakaar based kind of thing where, this is the confusing thing to me is like, this is the planet, like the time version of Sakaar in my mind. It's just where the void ends. And that's to me where I'm like,
well, the void is where time ends.
Yes, where time ends, and Sakaar is just where like all the planetary trash goes, and like at the end of those loopholes and all that kind of stuff at the very, very end. So to me, I'm like, it was a bit funny because I'm like, it's kind of a beat that we've kind of seen before too. Yeah. To me, it reminded me of that. But this plays out very differently, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying. I just didn't really think of that, but yeah, I wasn't something like, just because of, as you said, it seems so much more intense and different.
Yeah just because it's like, oh, we're messing around with time instead of like, this is a trash planet where Playboy Jeff Goldblum has orgy vehicles that
but also people know how to get off of that planet, whereas
yes, that too.
You can't really get out of.
Yeah, this is supposed to be the literal end of time.
We'll jump back to classic Loki, which he did the good. I think he had the right metaphor of calling it a Shark Tank. So instead of the like nice way that Renslayer puts it, he's like, no, it's just a Shark Tank. They put us here because they know we're gonna get eaten up, like we will die. And I should say, before we jumped back to classic Loki, Sylvie gave the temp pad to Renslayer. So whatever Renslayer told Sylvie, she trusted enough to be like, well, here you go, here's the temp pad. So I guess we can trust it because Sylvie trusted it, but who knows? I still wasn't 100% sure we were supposed to trust Sylvie until, I guess, this episode.
I was pretty on board with Sylvie already. I was like, yeah, I can trust.
Oh, I like her as a character, but I still was like, doesn't she have a long game that she's playing somehow?
Yeah, but I genuinely believed after that episode where like both of them like basically have the train episode and all that kind of stuff, trying to get off that apocalyptic planet. I basically, all cards were off. Like there was no more backup plans to me. I was like, yeah, she's accepted fate and all that kind of stuff. So everything that Sylvie and Loki are going through at this point, I'm just like, okay, yeah, I can genuinely get on board and trust their line. It's everyone around them now that I can't have any faith in what they're doing. Fair and enough. It comes back again in this episode too, which is hilarious.
But yeah. I skipped a bunch of stuff. Anyway, yeah, but you get kind of, I think this section does a good job of kind of giving you the rules, because I was thinking like, why are there so many Lokis? And they're like, oh, because we survive, which is a callback, obviously, because that's exactly what Loki told Sylvie. Like, no, we're not born to lose, we're born to survive. Like, we don't die, we survive. That's why there's way more Loki variants than anything else there. And also, how does the Elias thing work? And it seems like you pretty much have to get his attention. Because when Loki's yelling, Kid Loki's like, whoa, stop it, you're gonna signal Elias, like, calm down, just relax. So I think they got two big pieces of information out there really well. Easy rules to follow, basically. There's going to be an abundance of Lokis because they survive, and also they're able to survive because they know the rules, and one of them is don't draw attention to yourself by yelling and doing stuff like that.
Which is hilarious. It's like, don't yell, but wear that awesomely ridiculous classic Loki outfit. It's so attention grabbing that I'm like, Elias is kind of crappy at his job if he can't see that Loki walking around like that.
Well, I mean, I would assume it's more sound based than sight based.
Right. Oh no, well, that is true too. But still nonetheless hilarious. I would automatically assume then anyone that lands there would automatically let a big scream out, that which would track
Or
with
like,
Elias.
yeah, we'll get to that because I think
Yeah.
you getting there also makes a big noise as well if you come in
Mhm.
on a ship like we saw.
Right.
So you probably would get eaten up like right away.
Mm.
And then we learn that Kid Loki is the king of this domain because
Mhm.
apparently he's the only Loki that's killed Thor. So
Yes.
that was his Nexus event, and I was
Mhm.
like, holy! And it makes sense because he's wearing the Thor crown, basically a version of it.
Yes. Mhm.
Because I was like, what do you mean? Why are you wearing the horns? I always thought Loki thought the horns were like a good thing, but clearly he sees that as like, oh, like that means you're less than if you have the horns. Because he's talking to classic Loki when he says, why are you wearing the horns? Like, why would you be subjugating to what's his face over there? And so we learn that Loki doesn't actually like those horns or think those horns make him look like he's in charge.
Mm.
I thought that was an
Interesting.
interesting bit of information.
I thought that was very, very interesting. And that's coming from Kid Loki, right?
No, Loki says you're wearing the horns, meaning you're not in charge. He already like he's looking
Mm.
at Kid Loki and Class Loki like, why would you be following the kid? And
Mm.
he's like, hey, like respect him. He's the king here.
Oh, I see. Because the Lokis, the different Lokis are going to be very, very confusing to me. I'm going to track it as like classic Loki or like Richard E. Grant Loki and
Yeah,
Kid
classic Loki.
Yeah, classic Loki. That makes more. Yeah, there we go. I'm all caught up.
Um,
Sorry, names, man. Names are not our forte. Pronouncing them and remembering them, apparently.
yeah. Then we go back to Renslayer and Sylvie, who pulls a Loki trick and stalls for time by
Mhm.
this did remind me of The Good Place. She's like, oh, it's a magical spaceship that will take us away from here and take us to the good place. And I was like, I know this trick. I've seen this before. But it did, some really good animation on Miss Minutes as she like pretends to be looking like, oh, just a
Mhm.
second here, and how nervous she's looking. I
Mhm.
thought that was good. And I'm assuming she was just basically pressing the equivalent of a panic button the whole time because she's like,
Yeah.
how long is this gonna take? And he said she didn't even get to finish the sentence and they burst through the door. But I was
Mhm.
just like, you guys, you're tricky.
Yeah. It's a tricky move.
Um and basically because of that, Sylvie's like, I'll just prune myself, which I
Yeah.
like that. But basically
Well, I
she
mean,
does.
that would like to me that was like the most natural outcome of that. Like the moment you tell her it's like, oh, you don't actually die, you go to the end of time. I'm gonna join up with Loki now. Once we know that you're stalling and don't actually have, you're bluffing and don't have information. Like either way, the only difference is I thought she was gonna take Renslayer with her to the Void place
No,
originally, and that got foiled with people coming in and storming the
no,
front, so
I
to
don't think she was
speak.
ever. I don't know that. I think by the time they said like, and we're gonna find the man behind the curtain, she's like, oh, I don't trust you. This
Mm,
isn't going anywhere.
right.
But basically, when she is hiding before she prunes herself, she plants the seed in like Ravona's mind, like you do realize you have been played. Like you think you're in control, but
Mm-hmm.
like this thing that you pledge allegiance to isn't really giving you everything you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think throws Renslayer off. But then she pushes right back with like, oh, like I'll put you in a time loop, but a nice one. Do you even have a nice memory for me to put you in?
Mm.
Which I think is what makes her think of Loki in that moment. And then she makes the obvious, as you said, decision to prune herself.
Oh, I see what you. Yeah, okay. I see how the your narrative is much more romantic than mine for sure. I just was like, okay, there's no other way out but to do this. I just was thought she was gonna like, let's go both go together to this place.
No, she's definitely going to find Loki. And I think
Mhm.
what pushes her there is the whole like, do you even have a nice memory? And
Yeah, I
I
see
would
how that
imagine her
sets up.
nice memory is associated with. I'm still in the camp of it's just the fact that they made a connection to someone outside of themselves, even though it is technically there are variants. I
Yeah.
feel like that's what the point of this is because uh I'll probably be wrong, but I feel like yeah, she's never been able to connect with anyone and she did
Mhm.
finally connect with someone
Yeah.
in Loki. So I think that's why she would be like, "Oh, that's my nice memory." It's still a mission to go get him, but it is like
Mm.
I think that kind of like pushed it over the goal line there, where she was like, oh right, Loki, like what am I doing wasting my time trying to match wits with this person? I can just go get Loki.
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting to me. I read that a little bit more. I did believe that she was going to try to take Renslayer with her, but then the agents came and stopped her, and she's like, "Well, this way, I'm going to go find Loki and then come back and hatch a new plan or something like that." Like, I don't know what her plan was in that moment to like take Renslayer hostage and try to figure it out and go through the kind of files themselves with Miss Minutes. I genuinely don't know what the plan was there, but I feel like it's like I don't know if it's actually motivated by Loki. I'm not that convinced, but it's a very interesting thought you're putting
what
out
do you
there for
think
me.
she was doing?
To try to get Loki back to like hatch a plan, whether or not it was like to get Loki right away or reconnect with him. I didn't think of it like that. I was just like, that was your only move
Oh,
left.
I think you're missing what I'm saying. I'm
Mhm.
saying the thought moves away, it focuses her back again. So putting that in her head puts her back on the focus of what her goal was to get back to Loki.
Fair.
Yeah. I think you're thinking it's an either or situation.
Right.
And it's not. It is she had
I
a
am
plan.
thinking either
She
or.
got she got distracted.
Yeah.
Saying that put her back into focus of what her like the plan always was, which is
No, you're
back to Loki.
you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Because I was thinking either or was definitely
No.
Yeah.
I'm saying we both agree that was her plan. It's just what
Mhm.
brought her back to focus
Fair.
in that moment of like, oh shit, what do I do? What do I do?
Mhm.
Because she is surrounded at that point. And then she's like,
Mhm.
oh right, yeah, this is what I'm trying to do. I don't need to really focus on these people.
Yeah, especially if they're bluffing and stalling and playing games. Check out that.
Then we cut to like the little Loki like hideout.
Mhm.
This is, I think, where I kind of was like, I don't really like this. It's something I noticed that like most of the antagonists in this show are black. Like if you think about Renslayer, B-15 originally. And I've seen that in shows. Like usually if you need a character that you like just want people to be, oh, here they come. It's a lot of times it is a black, even if they're not inherently evil. It's just like if it's the judge that has to put the hero in jail, if it's the police captain that's stopping the hero from solving the case, it's usually a black person. So I noticed they were doing that in the TVA, where it was a bunch of black people carrying out these things. And then we get to this thing and I'm like, oh cool, they have a black Loki, and it's like, oh, he's the shitty one. Like he's the liar.
That must have been
really in a group of liars, he's the liar. And I'm like, what? Like, why did they do that? Like,
yeah, it's a situation where
you catch him and he's like, and then I killed Captain America, and then I had all 6 Infinity Stones, and it's like, yeah, even the animal knows you're lying, and it's like,
yeah,
okay, like, and then obviously what happens later, I'm just like, why, what is this show doing?
Yeah, the pattern is definitely becoming more clear. And I think it's finally clear now that I'm expecting no more new characters are going to be introduced at this point.
Who knows, man? I'm not going to make any more
any more
assumptions. I'm
fair.
not going to make any.
That's fair.
Because now that I know they can keep going with more seasons, then like they're obviously not trying to wrap anything up. They can just keep going. They can keep doing cliffhanger by cliffhanger.
Right. But that's assuming if the TVA is still around by the end of the season. Assuming it is or isn't, we'll see.
Yeah.
One more to go.
But yeah, I think this is where I kind of just was like, I don't know, man. I'm not that into this portrayal of black people in this show.
I could see that being true. For sure, I could definitely see that.
But anyway, he does that thing. He has to fight Alligator Loki for a bit. They stop it. Then we learn about classic Loki. And this isn't my thought, but I saw another reviewer say this, which I didn't think of beforehand, which is like, this is an opportunity for Loki to like learn some stuff. It's like you're learning about their backstories, but especially in this instance of classic Loki, when he's like, oh yeah, I didn't try to kill Thanos. I just pretended to be debris. And I get that everyone's like, oh, that was the theory, whatever. But what I like in terms of what this actually means for this Loki is like, yeah, he's like learning. I think he prefers what he did, that he tried to save his brother, because like the what he learns is like, yeah, he survived that moment, but then still just ended up missing his brother anyway
Mhm.
and coming out of hiding and getting caught.
Yeah. It's every it. I think there's Loki was definitely on a path of nobility and saw the act of hiding as cowardice and looked down on that for sure.
Yeah,
Even
and I
though
don't
that
even
was
know if he
classic.
I don't
Yeah.
even know if he looked down on it so much as like, oh, like whatever version of me that did try to kill him, like I would rather that than
Yeah.
this. In terms of more feeling like
Mhm.
vindicated in that decision as opposed to hearing what happens when you like hide from the Mad Titan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the alternative is that you just hide out at the end of time for all of time, and that's the alternative.
Mhm.
You just hide. And that's it.
And
There's
then
no
that
way out.
is what we were talking about last episode is that's him being alone and always being alone.
Yep.
So he would rather not that.
Yep. I mean,
So
even in being alone, these Lokis can't exactly be alone. Um,
well,
you know,
what I'm saying is
which is hilarious.
hiding on that planet. That's what he was
Yeah,
talking about. Was
conceptually, yeah,
that
because
like
like
he
he
was
was
just like,
saying
oh,
that they.
I missed my brother. I ended up missing my brother, so
Hmm.
I ended up being caught. So
Because
there was no
what does even like that classic Loki say? Like we're not the god of mischief, we're the god of chaos and destruction, or
outcast.
something
No,
like that.
we're the god of
Outcast,
outcasts.
god of outcast. Yeah, yeah,
That's their
that's true too.
one. That's their
Their
one
one
role to play.
commonality. Hmm.
Oh, I don't think that's true. I think that's what he thinks.
Oh, that's what he thinks. The one
Yeah.
role to play is, in fact, a stepping stone in the great meta of things.
Right. Yeah, that's and I think this show is turning a corner and being like, you don't have to do that. Like you don't
Yeah,
have to be that.
tell your own
There
stories. That's your
yeah.
way out. Yeah.
And speaking of telling her own story, she starts telling the story of Sylvie and how like she's different from all. He's like, oh yeah, I'm like you guys, but we need Sylvie. She's actually different from us. I mean, the obvious, she's a female. Have you ever even met a female Loki? And they're like, oh, that would be disturbing. And but it is him being like, yeah, like she, and I think we've already said it earlier, but like she doesn't want to control the TVA. Like her whole thing isn't I want to control the most powerful thing. She just wants to tear it down.
It's to
And
liberate
yeah,
and stop
which makes her
oppression.
different.
Yeah. It's not for selfish reasons. Every one of those other Lokis would admit full on that they would rather be a part of that system as the oppressor, and that's their logic, right? Versus her logic is just like, no, we're gonna blow up the system,
Yeah.
and that's gonna be how it's gonna be fair, and that's how we're gonna do our plans. That's our method of thinking. That's our moralities and all that.
Well, yeah,
kind of
because
stuff.
even in this system, they're like, well, we need to have a king, so it might as well be King Loki, the guy who killed the brother.
Yeah,
like,
the one that has the most clout and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff, right?
like they don't conceive of a world where they just all are equal.
Where it's free
and there's
give
no
structure.
like
Yeah.
power vacuum
Yeah.
or anything like that.
Yeah, there's no equality, there's no order, there's nothing like that. It's just like it has to have that hierarchy, it has to have that order for them. That's their way of thinking because
Yeah.
they
So
fit
then
within
he's
the
like,
system.
so then he's like, yeah, I'm gonna just go try and get Sylvie back.
Mhm.
And they're like, yeah, but you'll die. And he's like, it doesn't matter. Like, obviously, I'm destined to do that. I'll be fine.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna go get her. That's when he runs into President Loki, which I was like, okay. I thought it was. This is me being like, oh, the show isn't what I wanted it to be, but I was like, oh, like this, it's just this, like this. It didn't seem to like push the
I agree.
narrative anyway. It was just kind of like, oh, I guess he looks cool. I don't know what his deal is, other than
Yeah.
to highlight that boastful Loki, the one black Loki we get to see, also betrays the people that trust it. Like, and again, I get that that's Loki in general, but I'm like, why did the black person have to be the Lokiest of the Lokis in the sense of all the negative attributes of Loki?
No, I get your point. Absolutely. Like, why did it have to be Richard E. Grant that gets like a good finale and all that kind of stuff? And why is Kid Loki the one that gets to join the Young Avengers later on? You know, I get what you're saying. It is very disappointing. Like that's the role that the one black Loki had to play out of all the other Lokis who are very, very lacking in diversity. I will say that I saw in the
they're all white. They're all men.
Yeah, they're all men and they're all white. And I'm like, there's not an Asian Loki or like a Hispanic Loki or like any, there's no, like, I didn't see that. And and maybe I need to do some more pausing and freeze framing of the shots.
Well, the point is there's none
It's
that have any meaningful time on screen.
correct. But
Yeah.
you know what though, and yeah, because, and for those that are opposed to the Asian Loki comment, there's also the, oh God, what's his name? The one of the warriors that was clearly of
Yeah,
Asian
he's not
descent.
Asgardian. They
He's
made
not
that.
Asgardian, but they
Yeah.
basically adopted,
I know Loki's
colonized him and all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, but Asians do exist in that realm, so it's not out of question that there's an Asgard that are
Yeah,
Asians or something like that in a multiverse of
I
whatever.
feel like it would be silly if someone was like, "Why do you want there to be an Asian Loki?" Like the whole
Yeah.
point is they're variants, so yeah,
Yeah.
they can be any ethnicity,
They could be
they can be
anything.
any sex, like it could be anything.
Well, I mean, if we, in a world where there's an alligator Loki, it makes a lot more sense for me to chuck in the Asian Loki card or the Hispanic Loki card.
Yeah.
100% it makes more sense for me to do that than an alligator. Like, come on, can I say flamingo at this point? Probably. Why not?
But yeah,
Except for the color patterns wouldn't work. But
right,
know.
they've got to be green.
Yeah.
Alligator Loki bites off President Loki's hand. He does a scream. It's like, I guess that's they
I
really
guess that's the
pushed.
scream we're going with.
They really
Very
pushed. Yeah, I felt it was weird too.
Very
But yeah, like they
cowardly
really
scream.
pushed the imagery of this, kind of like the plane heist thing, and I was just like,
Yeah. You know,
Okay.
the moment I saw this, I was like, oh, this is exactly like that comment you made. This is like a Family Guy throwaway gag now. Because
Mhm.
to be honest, like this President Loki, I think another content creator said it. It's like, hey, I thought we were going to get this Loki the entire season and watch him go into President Loki and all this kind of stuff. And he was
Mhm.
disappointed in that. I'm like, well, I mean, clearly you haven't been watching, but he did admit that was his initial expectations of the show. But yeah, you're right. This kind of snippet makes everything, well, everything within the trailers content like a throwaway gag. That's not really part of the narrative of the story.
No, and it's. I mean,
Yeah.
they didn't really double down on Tom Hiddleston playing all the Lokis. It's like the only time Tom Hiddleston's playing another Loki. I know that they show the images of him, but I think that's all part of.
Loki and
I
all
think
that
that's
kind of
all
stuff,
part of
yeah.
this episode's my issue with this episode, and it's not that it's a poorly made episode. It's that like I'm just like I don't really get what's happening because when they showed when they were showing Loki variants, they were all variations of Tom Hiddleston.
Correct.
And then
you're referencing the TVA episode where they're scrolling
before they go to get the
thing.
variant, that episode, the variant. Then I get that in order to not make a joke out of it, Tom Hiddleston doesn't play Sylvie. That makes sense to me, that you would just get a female actor to play that. But then I'm like, oh, but if Loki could look like anything, then what? Like,
then
I don't like. I'm just so confused by variants. Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, and I get it that it's. I shouldn't say I don't understand. I understand that chances are one will look like him again.
Correct.
But it's just like,
no, but
I don't know.
You know, the part that frustrates me is you're right to point out the fact that in the TVA they're pointing out all those variants that actually are facially Tom Hiddleston, facially. So I'm like, okay, that linearly tracks. But this episode, facially, as you can see, if we are to understand that those are all Lokis and not just people that are under the Loki army, the President Loki army. Like I've heard that theory is like, how do you prove that they're all Lokis?
Right.
Like,
no, I get all of that.
Okay,
it's just, it's what I'm talking about. Like there's no rules to hang on to. Like there's nothing I can be like, oh, that means this. It's just like, I guess throw it all at me. And I just didn't fully grasp everything, and that doesn't make this episode bad. It just meant that I didn't enjoy it as much as I see everyone else enjoying it, because I was constantly hung up on like, wait, what's happening? And like, are these all Lokis? Like, why why is this one in particular played by Tom Hiddleston? Like,
and why that was my biggest question. Why is this one played by Tom Hiddleston? And then the one thing I did recognize is that there was so many Easter eggs in this episode up until this point, and I'm glad we're not talking about all of
Yeah,
them because we'd
I'm
be
not
here
gonna
all
talk
day.
about any of them.
Yeah, I'm glad we're not talking about them all day. Unless there's ones that actually have like merit towards everything else. But I'm pretty sure like someone's going to create that video when
Oh,
the
I've
next
seen 10 of
big
them.
movie
Yeah.
comes out, and then they're like, "Oh, this item in Loki was referencing to this." I I'm not interested in that right now. I am interested in the idea that there's so much going on that it distracts you away from the bad writing in this one scene. I do agree with that 100% because I was so confused. I'm like, this doesn't even make sense. This is confusing. Are those all Lokis? What's happening? Are we finding out that Lokis can be played by different people? And therefore, why was the TVA's files of Lokis just of the ones that look like Tom Hiddleston? Now, was that the limitation of the TVA's like kind of technology? Was it like, oh, Lokis have to look like facial variations? But then if they know they're looking for Sylvie, is it the idea, but they already knew she was a girl based on like Renslayer screwing up. So it's to me, I'm like, why is your data incomplete? Why is your data like this? And this is weird. None of it makes sense to me. It's just a
Well,
throwaway gag scene.
yeah, let's keep moving so we can get to this end of this episode and try to make sense of it. They all, well, everyone but boastful
That's
Loki,
accurate.
because
That's accurate.
everyone but
Yep.
boastful Loki leaves for
Yep.
whatever reason. Seemed like they were pretty tight with him,
Yep.
but he's just gone. And then
And
they,
I do like that this scene shows off classic Loki's powers of projection and all that kind of stuff, and how convincing they were, even to the other Lokis that know that his
yeah,
power is projection. So I'm like,
because they told
that's really
earlier,
cool.
he said earlier, like, I even tricked Thanos, and then it shows that he actually can do it. Like, he can
Yeah.
trick people with his illusions. So yeah, it wasn't just being boastful. He actually can back his shit up. But yeah, they basically get out of there, and Loki convinces Kid Loki and classic Loki that they should try and kill Eliath. Like, he's like, if it lives, it can die. I think he said that earlier, but they're just like, okay, fine. But then immediately they see that ship. I can't remember if it's World War I or World War II, but it's a warship. It shows up, and they're just taken out immediately. Like, because I think his plan was like actually thinking of it as a shark or a lion, and he's like, yeah, while it's distracted by its big meal, we can come in. And I'm just like, I guess that assumes that he never saw how big Eliath was, but whatever.
Well,
like,
I
like,
mean,
I feel like you've seen him, that you know that's not going to work, but it doesn't matter. It's enough to make them be like, we should rethink this. Like, this is not gonna work out.
right.
And that was, yeah, fair enough. And then we see Sylvie wake up in the void, and this, I was just like, they explain it. She was able, when she's running away, she was able to enchant Eliath.
Yes.
I think my confusion was, usually when she enchants, they don't visualize it the way they did with Eliath. Like, it's either like you see her inside that person's head, or you see her talking to someone who's kind of like been entrapped. And this one looked like she was just parting clouds and could see stuff.
So to be fair, I always took her ability to enchant people as like, I can insert myself into your memories and view them at the same time to use them if I wanted to collect data, right? So to me, I'm like, oh, that's her doing that. I just didn't realize at the moment visually that's how it's going to look like playing out in an action scene. So to me,
we're saying the exact same thing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We're saying the exact same thing. That
I needed that explanation.
They hadn't
later
visualized
on
it that way. They hadn't visualized that way before. That it, like, for Eliath, it was just like, what I'm saying is, let's say Eliath was played by Richard E. Grant. It was basically like she was like just moving his forehead and looking inside of it, as opposed to what we'd seen already, which is she's just in there, and so you're watching her live out a moment with the person she's enchanting.
Oh, no. What I meant to say was that I thought she only puts herself in if she's trying to manipulate, but if she's just observing, then she could just like peer in, I guess. That's how I took it.
Right. Okay. I still think it's the same concept, that we hadn't seen it before, so it was very off-putting.
It's a different way of seeing that done.
I see what you're saying, though. She wasn't doing what I'm talking about. She was
she's just peering in, so
she was just browsing memories. But like, like, we just never seen that before. So it was just like, they're saying she just enchanted it, but we don't know enchanting to be just browsing. We know enchanting to be taking control. So
Correct.
it
And
was
like
just awkward.
possessing and
Yeah,
yeah.
I
And
get what you're
the
saying.
men in black, like the little alien inside the body type thing, like, oh no, I'm the one that's pulling the strings inside the bigger thing that's, all that kind of stuff. It was a
Um,
weird visualization for sure. I'm glad they re-explain that later on in the episode, or she does, because I never would have
it
gotten
did
what that
nothing for
was.
me. I was like, I still
Yeah.
don't really get what the plan is.
When she explained that, I was like, oh, that's what that was. Oh, whoa, that was weird. But yeah,
Um, yeah, she
I
gets
just
saved by
don't get it.
Mobius. That was nice that they meet up
Mhm.
and they have kind of like a back and forth on who really was doing the bad stuff. And
Yep.
I think Mobius concedes, like, yeah, I'm actually sorry about how I treated you. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's like, yeah, you were doing what you needed to. I was being malicious.
Yeah. Yeah, because I like how she calls him out and was like, "You hunted me like a dog." It's like, "Yep, yeah, I did that."
Yeah. Then they meet up with Loki, and I like that it's the reverse. When they were in the TVA, she was the one that didn't joke around and just said, "Are you okay?" And then this time he
Yes.
shows up and he's like, "Are you okay?" Like there
Hmm.
wasn't. I think she tried to make a joke, and he just like, "No, are you okay? Like, is everything all right?" And I was like, "That's nice. They genuinely care about each other."
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Basically, yeah. Sylvie's like, I think is this where she said, "Yeah, I can enchant it. I'll just enchant it, and we'll get around Eliath."
I'm
And
sure at this point she says it right away
yeah,
for
and
sure.
Loki's just like, "No, we're gonna kill it." She's like, "What? How is that your plan?" I mean, yeah, I don't think they could have killed Elias, but I also wasn't like, "Oh, but enchanting him will be so much easier." Like she's acting like, "What a stupid plan you have," and I'm like,
Mhm.
both of you are taking a very wild risk. Like it's not
Yeah,
like that much. This
I,
isn't like that much of a like better thought out plan.
oh, I wholeheartedly agree. It's when she lays out her plans. It's like, yeah, that's ridiculous, but so is the other one. It's all ridiculous.
Yeah.
Unless you could find me a bigger thing that takes out Elias, it's gonna sound ridiculous. You know what I mean? Because that logically, that would be like, wait, get a bigger Elias, and then
Mhm.
whatever. it's, but it was never gonna sound easy.
No,
Um, to
no,
begin
no.
with.
I wasn't thinking like, oh shit. Like it was just in my head. I was like, you're like the show wants us to believe that these men Loki are such idiots, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I guess if you're just saying they're idiots for thinking they could just kill him, but in terms of actually achieving what they want to do, neither one of them has a very sound plan.
Oh, I
His
agree
plan
with you
is I'm
there.
gonna kill. Her plan is I'm gonna
Mhm.
enchant.
I just think the what that scene is trying to show you is like even all the men low key will ultimately again have the same systemic or systematic way of thinking versus hers was like, no, I'm not going to kill it. I'm going to control it. Like I'm not going to kill the beast. I'm going to tame the beast. Like the idea of
Mhm.
like the way to
What
get
I
past
guess
a
why
three-headed
that's
dog is
awkward.
to throw it some steak or something like that, as opposed to or play the flute.
I guess
Um,
why that's awkward
yeah.
is because it's the opposite of what we were saying earlier, which
Hmm.
is those men only wanted to control things, whereas she was willing to just wipe it out. And in this instance, she's like, "No, I'm going to control the big, powerful thing," and you guys just wanted to wipe it out.
Right. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's the flip opposite. I was just merely pointing out the idea that like no, her way of thinking is genuinely different
Yeah,
because
she's. I mean,
yeah, I mean comparative both plans on the table, I would take her plan over theirs because I'm like, okay, well, you have how many weapons? A dagger, cool, like a golden dagger that kid Loki gives you. That I'm not sure what the enchanting power of that dagger is. It was never fully explained, but
yeah,
the enchanting thing, if that's what she did earlier, I'm like, okay, we need to figure out how to do that again. That tracks to me. Chances are better. I'm betting on that for sure. But I mean, it's still they're still far fetched plans
yeah.
either way. 100%.
We cut back to Renslayer who visits B15, and I like this scene because B15 is basically like she's gonna beat you because she needs these answers and you only want them. Like this,
Yeah,
you guys aren't built the same in that
it's
sense.
it's the Gattaca thing. It's like I left nothing back. It's like that's the difference between me and you. It's such a good answer. And I'm like, you know what? Breakout performances by B15. I need that actress's name pulled up.
Wound me.
I'm sorry.
Wound me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like breakout performances. Every scene she is in is just breathtaking.
I really don't get
awesome.
why they don't prune her.
I trust Renslayer when she's like, no, I want to keep you around to get information from you or all that kind of stuff. I genuinely.
So she
believe
wasn't
that.
pruned because she's like, you had a link with
Mhm.
Sylvie, so I want to know what you know.
Mhm. I
And then I
genuinely
feel like
believe
she
it was
told
for
her what,
interrogation.
but then she told her, she's like, oh, it's just revenge. That's what she wants.
But like, because to me, I'm always thinking of the timing of this, right? Like, if that's a very immediate. Okay, B-15 would have been caught, put her in isolation right away before, and then we get to question her. That's a very systematic way of
What I'm
doing things
saying
that
is,
makes sense to
sure,
me, right?
that
Mhm.
explains why she wasn't pruned before this scene. But then
Right.
after that scene, that is the answer. Like, she's not going to get any more information from her.
So you think she should be just pruned right there and then? It's just like, yeah,
I'm
okay,
not,
I'm done with you.
I'm
Dan.
not saying that. I want B-15 to live forever. I'm saying it makes no sense if
You're
you
saying it
are
doesn't
getting rid
track.
of if you are getting rid of these loose ends, why keep that loose end out in the open? Because she was
Yeah.
like, oh, when I get out, I'm telling the truth. And she's like, we can't
Yeah.
have that. I'm like, then
She's
why
hell-bent
keep
on
her
that.
alive?
Yeah.
Like,
You're
not
absolutely right
even
about
alive.
that.
Like, why would you keep her? Because she's going, you see her resolve.
Mhm.
There is, she's not like, oh, yeah, I guess, like, she's seen the truth already.
Yeah.
Just
You
like
know what?
C20, she's
I'm
seen the truth.
I forgot about that because naturally I was like, okay, yeah, Renslayer. I was expecting to be ruthless Renslayer at this point. It's like, yeah, your cards on the table, you're ruthless, get this job done. Do your thing with the timekeepers if that's genuinely your motive. But to me, I'm like, yeah, that didn't track. I'm like, why didn't you just prune, have B-15 join the Loki gang, and then have a great final showdown scene with B-15 on the side of the
Yeah,
Lokis or
like,
whatever.
obviously that wouldn't be her thought process, but what I'm
I
saying
know.
is more like,
No, but
I
I
understood what
agree
you
with
meant by
you.
she needs the
Yeah,
information, but it's like,
yeah.
she's like, yeah, I was connected to her, and I know
Mhm.
that she just wants revenge on you guys. That
Mhm.
is her motivation. There is
Yeah.
no cool plan. It's just she's gonna get back at you guys for what you took from her,
Mhm.
and more than that, she's going to beat you because of what you did to her. It means she needs these answers,
Mhm.
whereas you're just interested in getting these answers.
Mm.
So I at that point, and then even to go and say, I'm going to give everyone needs to know the truth. That, to me, if I'm someone who's meticulously like trying to keep all these balls in the air and spin these plates, why would I need that kind of liability still out and about?
No, you're absolutely right. That's an immediate pruning, immediate capping situation. Like, yeah, if that's all you got to add to this conversation, that's all you're useful for, and you got to be pruned. I mean, more like other agents were pruned. I would imagine for less. And she's already starting to start it up. She's going to start a revolution or something like that. You're right. It only makes sense to prune her, and the fact that she didn't get pruned there is a very weird thing. Very
Yeah.
weird.
Then she tells Miss Minutes, oh, the person who is behind this is in
Mhm.
trouble. We have to find them. I don't really know what that means.
Mhm.
Because I don't really have anything concrete to be like, oh, this is what she knows, this is what she doesn't know.
Yeah.
I it's the like, and that's not, again, I'm not saying any of this to say this was a bad episode. It just didn't work for me because I'm just like, I don't really know what we're going for now. It seems like anything can change at any time.
Yep.
Yeah, Mobius and classic Loki have a little talk by the fire with alligator Loki. I like that he's like, how do you even know? And then he basically is like, you know what, it doesn't matter, because even if he's lying to you guys, that's the most Loki thing ever. You guys are
Mhm.
all about the game within the game.
Mhm.
And he's definitely doing that. So he's a Loki if he says he's a Loki.
Yep.
And I think that was more about like, yeah, you can be what you want to be. Like, just set your intentions. You don't have, I feel like he was pointing this at classic Loki. Like, you don't have to be the god of outcasts. Like,
Mhm.
what do you want to be? You
Mhm.
want to be more like alligator Loki and just say what you want to be and then be it, I think, was the point of that conversation.
Yeah.
Because we spend a lot of time with it. So I was just like, I'm hoping this is what they're getting at.
Mhm. Yeah. And here's
sorry.
another question too. This is the final time we see Mobius in this realm, right?
No.
No. Okay. Never mind. I'm
Uh,
gonna hold off.
then Loki and Sylvie have their little discussion about, which I don't feel like has ever been said out loud, but they're like, oh yeah, Mobius's theory on what the Nexus event was. And I feel like this is them trying to be closer. So Loki
Mhm.
conjures the blanket
For no
as a
reason
kind of
at all.
right.
Because
Yeah,
frost
he's a
giants
frost
don't
giant.
get cold.
I don't know if that's a fact. Like I know that they live in cold temperatures, but I don't know if they're completely unfazed by the cold. But I do think yes, the whole point is he's conjuring that because he would like
Mhm.
Sylvie to get under the covers with him. And again, I think it's just to be close to
Yeah.
and the way that Sylvie was like, he really cares about you, I feel like is more her being like, I really care for you.
Mhm.
So it's more verbally close this way. But I like the, again, it's like the game within the game as they have
Yeah.
this conversation.
Yeah, yeah, because you can tell they're trying to like outplay each other. It's a game of like a conversational chess,
Mhm,
and it's very interesting to be like, okay, are you going to say it first? Are you going to say it first?
mhm.
Are you? It's maddening, but also entertaining to watch.
And I think Sylvie kind of breaks because she's like, I don't even know how to do this, and he's like, I don't know what this is, and she's just like,
Mhm.
I don't have friends, I don't have anything.
Mhm.
But obviously Loki's like, we can just figure it out together. Obviously, it
Yeah,
doesn't have to. We don't have to continue working as separate entities.
yeah,
This is definitely something we can work on together. And then they're like, well, but we have the bigger mission, which is the like bringing down the TVA. That's what's more important.
Mhm.
And I think as Sylvie goes down that path, that's when Loki brings the blanket back out to be like, yeah, but like, let's get back to this. Like,
Yeah.
let's not get too far down that mission path. Like we still are
Mhm.
nurturing something here.
Mhm.
Which yeah, I think that was nice. And
Yes.
oh yeah, basically the kind of the capper of this is Sylvie being like, well, how do I know that once we get what we need, you won't betray me? And
Mhm.
he says, I know why I betrayed everyone else that I
Mhm.
ever cared about. And he doesn't say why, but we can assume it's because he just assumed he'd always be alone anyway, and he
Mhm.
needed to be in power and save face that way. And he's like, yeah, but I don't have those hangups anymore. Like he basically, all of his motivations for doing anything now have changed.
Mhm.
So he's confident he's not going to screw her over, and she should trust that because, like, yeah, he knows he can connect with people now. Like he doesn't
Mhm.
have to be worried about like, oh, I'll fuck this up somehow. Like he's like,
Mhm.
no, like I know how to connect. Like he's got Mobius, he's got Sylvie. He even made an earnest effort to connect with the three Lokis and alligator Loki.
Yeah.
Um, I
Yeah.
think
This
he
is
knows like he can connect with people. He doesn't
Mhm.
have that fear anymore about like, no, I'll just always be alone.
Yeah, yeah, he's learned to love that part about himself that's just like that is obviously projecting, right? He's like, hey, if I always betray people, they're always going to betray me, so I can't get close to
Mhm.
anyone. He's gotten over that. He's done the emotional labor here. He's like, nope, I can trust someone, and therefore that bridges onto another person. And that hug later on is just it's great too. That's a great moment. There's a
I
lot
guess
of
we're
good
just gonna
moments
jump
in
to the
this.
hug then.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I mean, it's just it's hard not
All
to
right,
get
well
there.
let's
Sorry,
let's
but yeah, I'm sorry.
um
It is hard not to get there right there. But yeah.
but yeah, basically they all make their plans. So
Mhm.
they're gonna go try and enchant
Mhm.
Eliath to go beyond the void.
Mhm.
I guess Sylvie gave the temp pad to Mobius, so
Mhm.
Mobius is like, well, I'm gonna go back to the TVA. And the Lokis are basically, well, we're staying here because we know what this is. And obviously they haven't done the work that Loki has in terms
Yes.
of feeling safe to be out and about like that. So
Yeah. They'd
they're
rather
like,
stay
we'll just
secluded from
stick
the
to
world.
what we know.
Yeah.
And that is when, they
Mhm.
kind of do the Mobius offers a handshake to Loki, and Loki does the hug, which is a great,
That's where I
and
got
then he's
to.
like,
Sorry.
thank you, friend. And
Mhm.
it's funny because while Mobius is looking at Sylvie, he's like, you're my favorite. um
Mhm. It's such a good moment. It's like, you're my favorite. It's so
but
good.
yeah, I think it was nice that
Mhm.
he, Mobius means something to Loki.
Yeah.
That's an actual friend he's made.
Yeah.
uh
So
so then they
yeah.
go,
they go their ways. They hatch out their plan. This is the part where I'm like, okay, I need to know what that plan is. That's my burning itch right now because I'm like, what is it? It must be a distraction, I guess, right? To send Mobius
This
to
is what I was saying. That's
TVA
why I
or
was weirded out when you kept like defending this plan. I was like, I don't know what they're doing. They like she's standing there and they're like, oh
right.
shit, we need a distraction. And I'm like, I don't know what that mean. Like the word distraction is confusing to me because if they were saying we need to get his attention, then I'm like, oh, okay, run, make noise the way
Mhm.
Loki does. But they were like,
Yep.
no, we need to distract him. And I'm like, oh, okay. But it seems like you just brought his attention to you. And then
Yep.
Sylvie couldn't do her enchanting thing in the right time. So then
Mhm.
classic Loki comes to save the day.
Mhm.
I guess he's making up for not trying to save the day when
Yes.
Thanos came. So it's a nice redemption. Like I do like that.
Yep.
So he
flexes.
rebuilds Asgard.
Yep.
He rebuilds Asgard.
Yep.
But I'm just like I get the emotional impact of this. This
Yes.
is his chance at redemption. Like
Yes.
he's tired of hiding.
Mhm.
He's gonna go out saving people he cares about.
Yep.
But I didn't really understand like why that wouldn't have taken Sylvie out. Like he was like Eliath is right there, and he's a like smoke monster. So it seemed like any smoke that touches you, you're fucked. But like, so it was just I was just like, I don't understand the geography of this scene that this would stop Sylvie from being taken out.
So, and this, I'm glad you brought this up because to me, this is A, honorable Galactus comparison, but B, not that we want to think of that movie again, but the issue with smoke monsters, to me, I'm like, what kind of rules are we following here? Is the smoke automatically poison? Is it its physical entity? Is it its body? Like, I don't know what's happening with the Eliath thing. I'm just like, okay, I get the idea that the head, it's a nice way for me to be like, oh, cool. The moment I saw Eliath, this is a cool way for them to introduce dragons and things like that in things that aren't exactly the Shang-Chi movie right off the bat. So the concept is not exactly new. Chinese dragons are not like oh, so sorry, those Chinese dragon things are not really the biggest comparison in Shang-Chi. I like that they did that here, but to me, I was just kind of like, the first like time I saw it, I was like, oh, Galactus again.
I mean, the difference is this is how Eliath looks in the comics.
Correct.
So it isn't Galactus to the extent that like
I understand that, but
they actually did comic accurate.
Yes, and not knowing that, is touching the smoke, does that kill you? Is
it looked like it did when we saw Eliath take out that ship. It looked like they were running and it was just the smog engulfing them.
Right, I completely forgot about that display of power. So yeah, because it like basically eroded everything too, yes. Right? It would like basically anything organic it eroded away from that ship. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So I
yeah, you're right. Confusing.
It's not like absolutely I wanted confusing. Sylvie to die. I didn't even want classic Loki to die. It was just like I don't understand.
Inconsistent.
Fully.
Right.
I can't even say it's inconsistent. I just don't understand. I think it was because based on how many people love this episode, I'm sure someone will be able to explain to me like what happened there, but I'm just like it seems like poor camera placement at best, because I'm just like it looks like she's right about to be engulfed, and why would I don't know where classic Loki came from, where that he starts doing this and it's like, oh okay, I guess I'll deal with this now, because it just felt like even Eliath turning would have got some smoke on Sylvie, who wasn't able to do her enchanting just yet. And I understand that the whole point is that it's Loki and Sylvie working together that gets this job done. Yep.
It's the Guardians of the Galaxy thing. Let's join hands and ground each other. Yeah.
And just like the Nexus event, it's their connection that saves them. I understand that. That's not lost on me. I was just like, it seems like they let Eliath get way too close to her.
The powers of Eliath are in question right now, and I
Hmm.
agree with that. It was very confusing to me. It was like watching one of the things where I was like, I had the level of confusion, and I don't want to bring this up, but that episode of Game of Thrones in that final season with the war, I was just like, wait, are they just did they do a bad job of editing everything together where it's meant to be like, oh, it's a further progression of the smoke becoming more of a danger, but they chose those shots earlier on, and like they could have just rearranged those shots where it could have been thematically like there's less smoke in the beginning and more smoke gradually around her, and then you know what I mean? Because that definitely that battle, aside from not making a lick of sense from a war strategy standpoint, was just like everything seemed out of sequence. Um,
Yeah,
from
I think that might be
it
a
was
good way of
weird.
putting it. Like
Mhm.
it didn't seem sequenced properly.
Yeah,
Um,
it didn't seem sequenced properly, and it was very confusing to me because even like the first time she accidentally touches him, to me, I'm like, okay, so touching him, the
I
smoke
don't
is
think she
not
accidentally touched Elias. I think she right away went to enchant and it worked.
the first time. Okay,
Yes. I don't think
yeah,
that was an
fair,
accident. I think
right? Because
she
your
went to be like,
discussion thing is
I
the
want to
engulfing.
control this. And then she's like,
Yeah.
oh, because that was her explanation, is that like she went to enchant just to move it out of the way. But then it was like, oh,
Mm,
this thing has memories. So that's our in.
gotcha.
Um, which is what I'm saying. I understand why she thinks she has a better plan. It's just really what she has is a better result, not actually a better plan.
I agree.
Just like, oh, learning what's inside of his head is better than just killing it.
Yep.
But I'm just like, but I don't know how you think you're gonna do that in a better way
Mhm.
than they think they're gonna kill him.
Oh, and this is where like I got to go back to the comment you made before. I'm like, you're like defending this plan. I'm like, I'm not defending it. Out of the two plans, it is the better plan, but they are both still far fetched plans. And to me, the most confusing part of this plan is why send Mobius back to the TVA as a distraction? Like, what
I don't know
would
if there
that
was
have
this. I don't think that was a
accomplished?
distraction, but what's Mobius gonna do?
What is Mobius going to do?
It's the
But
whole
what's he going to
point.
do at the
No,
TVA
what I
either?
mean is, why keep him there? Like the whole point is everyone gets to choose what they want to do. They're no longer forcing people to do anything.
Fair.
So he says, I want to go back. They
Mm.
say we want to do this. The Loki
Mm.
say we want to do this.
Oh, that's how you read it. Because
I
I
don't
thought they were
think
all
this.
servicing the same plan except for the two Lokis
Well,
that ran off.
ultimately, Mobius, Sylvie, and Loki have the same idea of toppling the TVA. But
Correct.
I also understand that this episode was all about like state your intentions and follow through, as opposed
Mm.
to like, no, we're all a part of this thing and you all got
Yep.
to do it this way.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, so
Lo-
your thing is like, let's fight for our own thing in our own ways kind of deal. That's
yeah,
how you took that. Oh, okay. Okay. I like that. I'm into it. I didn't read it as that. I thought it was all tied together as the same plan. And I'm like, this plan makes no sense. But doing your narrative, your logic tracks so much better. Because mine was like, wait, why did he go back to distract them when Eliath is right there? Like,
and I don't
what
think he's
purpose was
there to
that?
distract them. I think he's
Mhm.
there, like he can, even if they like, I think he knows like, what are they going to do, prune me again? Like they'll prune him again, he'll be back there. They can keep working with him if they're still there or
Mm.
not, I don't know. But like,
True.
I think his idea is
True.
just like, I'm going back to tell the truth. Like I'm gonna, like they're not gonna be able to
Mm.
survive this. I
Fair
don't
enough.
know that that's gonna work. I'm just saying that's his
Mhm.
thinking, and also it wouldn't make sense for them. Like, but you have to do this, Mobius. It's like, okay, that's your plan. Like
Mm.
we're all doing what we want to do right
We're
now.
toppling the TVA in our own way.
Yes.
That works. Gotcha.
Um.
Curious to see what Mobius ends up doing then.
Yeah.
That's gonna be very interesting.
And they do enchant Eliath, and then they
Mhm.
see a castle, and I was like, I don't know what that means. I don't even know
Yep.
what they're about to do. Like, I guess to your point, that was just them browsing memories, and I guess they found the
Mhm.
memory that makes sense to them.
Well, I guess because what does Sylvie refer to him as later earlier on? Is like he's not a shark, he's a guard dog.
Sure.
So like again, the Cerebus kind of argument of like what's he actually guarding, and that must be the person that's actually pulling the strings behind
Hmm.
all of it, kind of deal. Because she uses the Nexus event kind of logic towards a bigger, greater mind. It's like, hey, they must have the same logic here because they can do whatever they want, track, and nothing would ever happen as long as there's a guard dog there. I mean, and this is where we're going to sum up, I guess, a lot of those Easter eggs and all that kind of stuff. If we're reading into any of those Easter eggs and reading into everything, then we're served up to the big bad is the big question, burning question is, are we going to see Kang? We next episode or revealed at some point the way Thanos was revealed in a post credit, like that smirk and all that kind of stuff. Or are we going to see full on Kang? We don't know yet.
I don't think any of these shows have hinted at something like that happening. I think
they kind of have, but through only Easter eggs though. Only Easter eggs. We'll say that. Okay. Yes.
Right. So this is what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't think it's a burning question because
narrative wise, not so much.
If I've watched these shows, this is the third one now. Mm-hmm. Maybe third time's the charm. I don't really know, but I also don't think that narratively it makes sense, and I don't think that these shows are interested in setting that up. I think I think these shows are like, here are the characters we're introducing, so you've already met the important people by episode 5. Mm-hmm. We're not going to like introduce a new person the same way it was Agatha all along, the same way it was the power broker was Emily Van Camp's character. I never Agent 13. Like,
no, you're right.
It's going
about
to be
that.
Somebody we've already met. Like, and again,
or it's going to be someone inconsequential. Yeah,
I can't predict anything. It could be Kang shows up. Great.
What's the guy's name at the end of time or something like that? There's someone that who survives. He who remains. Like, question is like, could it be that? Could it be another Loki at the grand scheme of things, or like everything like that? Those are the three things. But right now, those are the three options that logically make the most sense. But I don't know if it's going to be Kang. It doesn't feel like it's a Kang move in the idea of like Kang uses technology to conquer civilizations, and there's no conquering here. There's nothing here, but I mean, maybe the ultimate civilization he conquers is time itself, right? We don't know.
I don't think that's the function of these shows. I don't think it's to set that kind of stuff up.
I agree.
I think the function of these shows is always to deepen your connection to the title character and
set up a young Avenger so far.
That for people who know what's happening, but I don't think if my mom watches Falcon and the Winter Soldier, she'll be like, right, that's Patriot. Mm-hmm. Like, she'll just be like, that was doing. Yep. Like, she'll see him again when he becomes Patriot, like, right, from Falcon and Winter. So I don't think it's establishing anything so much as it is like
it's like seed. People who know here's the seedlings. Seeding. Here we're incepting everyone. We're planting the seeds. Here's our future plan. Maybe.
Yeah.
If it's profitable, maybe yes, we'll go there.
As I've said, I'm not really. I think the fun of guessing has been taken away from me because I don't really feel like I have any stable ground to guess from. I feel like this show has constantly like rewritten the rules.
The rug underneath you, for sure. That description is definitely very apt.
So, and I know I keep saying it. I'll say it again, probably 100 more times. I don't think that makes it bad. I think it makes it hard for me to engage with because I'm waiting to see what I guess I am. I'm waiting for them to untangle everything and see how the end of the world actually works out. And they're not interested in that. And as I said up top, I learned, they are doing a second season. So
the thing that I think is kind of interesting conceptually is the idea that last recording, I complained about the post-credit scene giving away the fact that he survives, he's in a different dimension with other Lokis and all that kind of stuff as like an immediate whatever. But now that I'm thinking about with your point about the pulling the rug thing, would that, if they didn't show us that post-credit scene to go there in this episode right away the way they did, would that have been better, or would that have been adding more to the rug pulling under thing? I think it would have just added more. It's very interesting. It's a double-edged.
I definitely think it would have been better served at the beginning of this episode.
Oh, I agree with that, but it's still adding on to the same criticism that you're talking about, which makes sense to me because I'm like, if I'm always guessing, it's never fun to always be wrong.
It's not even be wrong. It's just like, it's more like, like, what's the point if if you don't, I guess for me, I'd like to make an educated guess, and I don't think I have enough information to make any kind of educated guesses for any of this.
That's fair. Yeah, to me, it's one of those things where I feel like there's so much like who, what, when, where, why that it's hard to follow which thread should I be pulling at. That's going to give me the most return on my on the investment. In sense of, in Game of Thrones, I'm like, the thing was, which character should I invest my time into? And I'm like, oh, you're doing that. Like after the first season, I'm like, oh, you killed Ned Stark. That's huge. This show has guts. And then after that, I'm like, I just don't even know who to care about anymore. Like after the so in this one, I just feel like, oh, you're just going to constantly redirect us and constantly have gotcha moments. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go along with the ride now, engage less, and put less thought into theories and all that kind of stuff, especially knowing now this episode is like, okay, you get the President Loki scene. It is a throwaway gag. And that sucks, especially because I feel more rug pulled out from under feeling from the trailers as well. Which is why I'm glad you're like, hey, I don't watch the trailers for the episode. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start doing that. And my life has been better.
Yeah, I can.
Marginally, not significantly, only marginally, but it's been better.
Excellent. Well, that's this episode 5.
Yep.
We'll be back next week for episode 6. Well, that'll be good. Thank you very much for listening. We are part of the That Shelf Podcast Network. That means there's other great shows like Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels, Composers, and more. So please head on over there. That's thatshelf.com. You'll find our show, the shows I mentioned. You'll find more than those shows. So have a blast. And also, if you'd like to hear older episodes of Spoiled Rotten, go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @tdfspoiled. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, a whole bunch of places. So please go there, rate, review, subscribe, share it with your friends, your family, your enemies, anyone that will talk to you. Please share it with them.
Yeah.
And enjoy the show.
Share it with people that will heavily disagree with us. And we wanna know why too. Because that would be fun.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you at the finale. Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.